Hi, welcome to How to Repair. Today I'm going to show you how to maintain and also change a belt on a Beko Vented Tumble Dryer. Vented tumble dryer means that the air is actually expelled out of the machine and it does not condense it like condenser dryers. Now we have a Beko machine. Although the machine sounds like it's working, it's not actually turning the drum. Now I'm just going to press start on this so you can hear the problem with the machine. The machine is running, but when I quickly open the door, you can see that the drum is not turning. This is a very good sign that the belt has gone on the machine. Now if you've got a machine that's starting and humming, but the drum is not turning, this may be the capacitor. That will be in another video. So the first thing we need to do is take the lid off the machine and have a look to see where the problem lies. First thing you need to do is make sure you disconnect the appliance from the electricity supply. Then we'll turn the machine round and you can see 3 screws on the back here. Now this is to take the lid off. We can either replace the belt by dropping the drum backwards by undoing these screws on the side, but in this video I'm going to show you how to maintain the machine, because vented tumble dryers do get a lot of fluff inside them, and it's a very good idea when a fault like this occurs to clear all the dust out of the machine, because this does contribute to other problems in the machine, like not heating correctly. And also if you end up with too much fluff building up around the front felt bearing, stuff like that, that can restrict the drum from turning and also cause the wear on the belt. So first thing we're going to do is remove the lid on the machine. 3 screws, straight forward. The lid lifts up, pulls back slightly, a little bit of a jiggle, and the lid comes away. Right, with the lid off the machine and the power supply disconnected, we can see the belt would normally sit here. Here is the old belt, which is still wrapped around. Now if you look closely at the belt, you can see that the belt has burnt, and where the motor shaft sits, which would be just here, the drum on this machine is turning freely, but it has been spinning on the belt. And I don't want to point a finger in the household, but this is usually due to the machine being overloaded and the drum capacity greater than what the motor can actually turn. And this would cause the shaft on the motor to be spinning on the belt, and this would cause the belt to be cut through, as you can see here. So as I said, we could remove just the screws on the side, ease the drum back and get the belt on, but this does not really help us in maintaining the machine and solving the problems for the future. So I'm going to remove the heater plate cover first and the inspection hatch and the vent tube from the back of the motor. The cover then comes away. You need to be careful to protect the heating system when disconnecting this, as they are very fragile and they can be damaged. So we've taken the back of the machine off. You have an airflow which comes through here over the heater and then into the machine. We also have the inspection cover for the motor. This, on some models of the machine, will come off just by undoing the screws here, but on other models of the machine you have to go inside here, which I'll do a close-up of in a second, and undo a screw which will release the pipe to allow this to come off. So firstly we'll just undo these screws. And as you can see, this will not come away, so what we're going to have to do is tilt the machine over and go inside to release the screw. So here we have the access airflow, and just down inside here you can see the screw. By releasing that screw, we're now able to remove the tube. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove all the screws around the outside, undo the circlip here which holds the shaft to the bearing, and then as we ease the panel back we will disconnect the heater. But you need to be very careful of the heater as it is a fragile item. Now that the panel is loose, you may need to disconnect the electrics from the intake going to the filter, and we have to disconnect the electrics here. But the first thing we need to do is remove this circlip. Here you can see the circlip. With a small screwdriver, just ease it off and the circuit will come away. There's a washer. Keep them separately and make note of the order that they came off. Next we need to disconnect the electrics. When removing any wires from the machine, it is always a good idea to take a photograph. But as I've been doing this many years, I'm not going to in this circumstance because I know it's only a live wire and a neutral wire that needs to be disconnected there. Now, easing off the back panel, you just need to remove the plugs which can go onto the heater. On this case it's 3 wires and 2 wires, but do take note of which way they go round, and they do have location lugs to make sure that they go back into the correct place. Okay, with the electrics removed and the circlip disconnected, we will be able to hold the drum and carefully slide this panel away. Let the drum drop slightly, and now we're able to remove the whole panel with the heating element intact. We also have another washer on the inside of the drum supporting on the spider. Now the drum can be lifted out completely and we have full access to clean the machine, inspect the pads which are on the front of the machine, which basically control the pressure of the drum, and we've got full access to the motor. So once you've got the machine completely open and the drum removed, before we replace any of the components that are needed, we're just going to quickly hoover the whole machine to remove any of the excess dust, which will prevent problems occurring in the future with either the machine overheating or the dust getting into bearings, pads and so on, and increasing excess wear. Next we're going to inspect the fan, and we have to remove the motor and undo the screws to remove the fan. The way the system works is the air is pulled in through the machine over the heater, which then goes through the close on the drum, is then sucked out through these filters here, which then goes down over the fan blade and then out in the exhaust. A condenser dryer works in a different process. A condenser dryer circulates the air, and by circulating the air it is using a condenser plate to basically get the moisture to condense on the condenser plate, and then the water is then pumped into a collection tray. So I'm just using a normal quarter drive with a turner on the end, so I've got some angle on the socket. So we need to remove these 4 bolts. Two on the other side. The nuts are actually welded to the chassis on this machine. They may vary on other machines. Once the motor is disconnected, you need to remove the wiring plug, This can only be located one way because it has notches on it to go into the holder. So we'll put that down. Then we can either slide the motor back completely, disconnecting the capacitor. Now with capacitors, make sure you're safe because capacitors are capable of holding a charge. So you can use some pin nose pliers to take the wires off. Insulated, of course. One comes off one side, one comes off the other side, and to be safe you can always just put a steel surface across holding the insulated side. That's ready to come out. Now we have the fan blade down here. To actually access the fan blade we need to undo a couple of screws. This machine has got 3. And then there are some clips. So I would use a small flat blade screwdriver just inserted in there, lift the clips up and then just prise and carefully go round all of it, lifting the clips up. Don't put too much force on them, otherwise you'll break them. Sometimes the clips will go back down, so just take your time. The cover comes off. Now this exposes the fan, as you can see some fluff built up there. And again, that's a 10mm nut. So if you need to replace the fan blade, just anti-clockwise, take the nut off. Now sometimes you can wiggle these from side to side, sometimes they can be exceedingly stiff, but that exposes the fan blade. There is a groove on the shaft which is a half D shape, so the blade can only go on one way, and that's basically the whole fan assembly. Worth cleaning up all the dust in here as well, and then we'll reassemble the machine once I've cleaned it. If you need to take the cover off, you'll need to clean inside these holes, but there are 4 screws that hold this cover and that will remove the whole motor. If you do want to replace the motor has got 2 screws holding it in place on either side, which are some covers which actually hold the bearings in place, but we're not going to go to that extent in this video. So now I'm just going to replace the fan blade. The old one is in perfect condition. As I said, it has a D shape and that can only go one way. That goes on, then our washer goes on, then our nut goes on. Just take it tight and quarter of a turn. Then our cover can go back on. I've already cleaned this up and it wasn't in bad condition. That's all in place. We'll now replace the 3 screws. It's on the other side. Now with the motor out of the way, if you do need to get at the forward thermostat or you need to get at the door lock, you need to swing the machine round. But first there is a screw in the bottom here. So we'll undo this screw. It's slightly different to the other screws. It's got a wider head on it and it's designed to cut into plastic. Turn the machine around, open the door, and we have 4 screws, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, 2 on the side, and 2 hidden behind the door here. So we need to actually remove the door. And this is not a Phillips, this is a Torx screw. I'm not undoing the top one fully yet, because that'll hold some of the weight. It's okay if you've got another set of hands. Now you can hold the door while undoing the top screw. And the door comes away. This now exposes the 8 screws. Notice that a couple of these are longer, so do make a note of where they come from. So it's short ones all on the bottom, long ones there, and long ones on the top. Turn the machine round again so I can show you. Once these screws have come away, this can come forward and you have some wiring behind it. Okay, before we can actually remove this plastic panel completely, we have 2 wires for the NTC sensor. This is not a conventional thermostat, it is an NTC sensor. We then have 2 wires on the door lock. If you're in any doubt whatsoever, do take a photograph of where they come from. So the 2 wires on the door lock come off. This will give us a little bit more space to get at the screw here which holds the NTC sensor in place. I'm going to take the NTC sensor out. That's our NTC sensor with a seal on it. That is our door lock. When the door lock shuts, it lifts up the micro switch, allowing electricity to start the machine. You've got a wire here and a wire here, and that will make continuity when the switch is selected. Now we'll rotate this round and carefully undo the wiring. So next we're going to remove the wire that goes through to the sensor that measures the dampness of the clothes. Basically this is a sensor which reads the moisture in the air and is able to detect how much more drying time the clothes need. So we'll just put that over on there like that. There's 2 screws in here, and these things really do fill up with fluff which can give false readings and everything else. This is why when replacing a belt or any component on the tumble dryer, it is worth going through to the effort of taking all these things apart, cleaning them, maintaining them. It's only basic maintenance. So undone the 2 screws here. Now we can lift this up, and again you can see the amount of fluff that is built up in this, which could be giving you a false reading. We've then got 2 wires which attach to either side of the metal, and I believe what these actually do is the more damp the clothes are, the greater the resistance is going to be on the reading. So as they get drier, there'll be less resistance because there's not so much moisture. So we'll just disconnect those wires. They have got little tabs that you press down to release. And then that can come away. We can now thread these wires through. The seals come off there. These seals are all replaceable at the website, by the way. So we'll just thread the wires through carefully. Disconnect that. Now this back of this has 4 or 5 screws, which we can take this back bit off to clean it all up properly. Sometimes you can just take the filter out and you will be able to clean inside, but you will not be able to clean up on these filters on the side. So it is worth doing the job properly. Just make sure you're organised and everything comes apart the correct way and goes back together with the correct screws. As you can see, these screws that are coming out of here are very different to the screws coming out of here. Okay, all the screws are out and this plastic cover should just pull off, and you can actually see the amount of fluff. This is not only bad for the actual maintenance of the machine, in other words drying time and efficiency, this can become a fire hazard. If you do not maintain machines over a period of time, fluff, dust builds up on hot components like the heating element, the motor, and they can cause fires. So when you're doing a service job like this, it's well worth doing the job properly in the first place. These little filters lift up, be careful with them, but you can see how bad this is clogged. This is seriously restricting the airflow. So we've really cleaned up the whole of this. We're going to put the filters, I even put these under hot water to clean them out as good as I can without damaging the filter fluff mesh. So that one clicks into that side. That one locates on that side. As you can see, we've cleaned everything up as good as we can get it. Put the cover back on. Now remember your screws. There were 2 screws here with flat heads and the rest of the screws were normal. Do not over tighten, otherwise you'll strip the plastic. So I'm not over tightening. I do know what I'm doing with my torque. So I suggest you use a screwdriver if you're not familiar with these power tools. I need to thread the wiring through here now. Doesn't matter which way they go round on this. Just make sure they're locked in place and the wiring can come through. Matter of fact, wires locate underneath that lug. I might need to use a small flat blade screwdriver just to lift it. That's the wiring neatly tucked in. Now this panel is now ready for reassembling. Right, to test the NTC sensor, the manufacturer states that the NTC sensor at 25 degrees should be around 19,500. We've got an air temperature at the moment somewhere in the region of 15, 16. So I'm just going to connect the probe up without touching the NTC sensor. And as you can see, I've got 24 ohms of resistance. I'm going to warm it up with my finger, and we should see the NTC sensor drop, and as you can see it's dropping. And of course, once the NTC sensor got to 25 degrees, it's very hard to do. It should be showing 19.5. So as you can see, if I warmed that with a warm surface rather than my fingertips, which aren't that warm, of course it would drop down to the actual required temperature. So I'm happy that that NTC sensor is working correctly. Right, I'm just going to refit the NTC sensor, and of course I'm going to thread the wiring up on our moisture reader. And make sure you get all these wires tucked in correctly as they came off. So this just threads like a snake. That's done. Now we need to insert the NTC sensor, and that went that way round. So I'll just insert the 2 screws onto the NTC sensor. It is a little bit of a fidgety job servicing these things, but do take your time and be organised. So this whole panel now is ready to reinsert. So I'm going to drop it down, locate it in its bottom lug. I'm now going to make sure all these wires are tucked out of the way correctly, and we'll put the door lock on. Onto the top, onto that, and now we'll connect the NTC sensor up. And I'm making sure that no wires are going to be trapped. And that is ready for putting back in its correct location. We'll just hold it there and now put a couple of screws in the front. Before inserting the screws to hold the panel back on, I'm just putting the door seal on. Now these can be very, very fidgety because they fall down as you're trying to put them in place. And the motor assembly is ready to go back on. That just slots in there, lines up with the bolts, and we'll put the bolts back in. Before tightening them up, it's always worth getting all 4 bolts in place. Capacitor wiring, one wire goes on one side of the capacitor, one wire goes on the other. The motor harness, as I said, can only go in one way because of the location lugs, and that's ready for reassembling. So before we put the back panel on, just get your new belt, if you're fitting a new belt. Let this go around the drum. Okay, our back panel's on, everything's correctly lined up. We'll just get some screws in and now replace all the screws all the way around. Next we need to put our washer on and fit the circlip. Now the easiest way to fit the circlip, if it will not go on with hand, just use a pliers at the open end of the circlip. Just pop it down until it clicks into place. We've done the wires for the heater, now we just need to connect our live and neutral to the main suppressor. This is another item that can go on these tumble dryers quite regularly. The filter actually blows and that can cause an electrical trip. All our wiring is correct. We're now ready to connect the belt. And I'm just rotating the drum, making sure that the belt is not twisted. Because it's a new belt, it will be slightly out of line until we get some tension on there. So as I was saying, the belt is now lined up on the top of the drum, and as you can see, the belt has got a clear inch difference. Although this is the correct belt, it all depends on room temperature and it all depends on the stretch. It's a new belt, so therefore the stretch on it is quite hard. To get these on, I use a piece of flat tube. Now this is just a piece of stainless steel tube, and I go under the belt and then I lever so that goes down, and then without turning the drum just push it as far as you can and then start rotating backwards and forwards. So basically once you've got it on, rotate it one direction, then rotate it the other direction, and just keep doing that while you're pushing the belt. And once you've got to the level, just go backwards and forwards, pulling the tube towards you. It is quite tricky, and you must remember that I've been doing this for 30 to 40 years. Once you've got the belt on, you're then able to line the belt up where you think it should be on the pulley. And then we'll be able to take a look at the top of the machine to make sure it's lined up on the drum correctly. So once the belt is on the pulley at the bottom and on the pulley at the top, we want to get it in line with the marks on the drum, and we've done a good job here. It's only out, in my opinion, one notch. But we'll just let it rotate, and as we rotate it, you can see that the belt has actually gone onto its correct location. That belt is fully aligned and good to go. Don't forget, when reinserting this, we need to put a screw into its mounting plate on that side. We'll just drop this down, line it up, and now we can put the screws in. And one longer screw goes on the inside. Now that we've got everything connected, we've removed all the dust, we've cleaned everything out, we've replaced the belt, we're now able to put the back cover on. So we've got all the machine together, just need to put the door back on. Support the door while you get one screw in all the way. Again, do them tight, quarter of a turn. Now that we've plugged the machine back into the electricity supply, we're going to just make sure the belt is sitting straight on the actual original marks. So I'll just press start for a few seconds. You can see the belt is lined up perfectly and the machine is running nice and silently. Right, there we go, we've got the machine all up and running. Just before I start the machine now to put it on a test cycle, remember, if you need any parts from us, you will need your model of the machine, and sometimes we'll ask you for the PNC number. Please remember to shop with us at How to Repair, as that's what keeps us going and able to make these videos for you. There are lots of videos on the website with regards to replacing the belt, the capacitor, the motor, servicing the machine, useful tips, and many more appliances. Thanks very much indeed for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.